and Steve for sharing them. I'm now going to take this opportunity to introduce our discussion starters. So at this point, I would like to invite Jay, Beverly, and Mary to turn on their cameras. As with the discussion starters for panel one, these great people have agreed to kick off our discussion by answering some of our questions. I'd also encourage if our panelists have thoughts that they might want to share, we'd be happy to hear them as well. Although we are planning on going to some of the people that we have waiting on the phone as well. So. As I mentioned before, these are our discussion questions for session one. And our first discussion question is, what are you currently doing to treat your vitiligo? How has your treatment regimen changed over time and why? And what symptoms would you like to see most improved or resolved by treatment? So I'm wondering maybe if I could turn to Jay. Jay, would you be willing to kind of take a first answer at the question of what are you currently doing to treat your vitiligo? How has that changed over time, and what symptoms would you like to see most improved?
Yes. Hey, thanks for the panel and FDA for doing this opportunity for me.
Thanks, Jay.
I mean, I've been doing treatment since I was 15. I'm 34 right now, and currently, as I'm talking to you, I'm not doing any type of treatment at all. Back when I was 22, back when I was 22, my dermatologist sent me in his office, and he essentially said, like, I'm sure other people that take treatment, that take treatment as well. He said, Jay, there's really nothing else I can do for you. And that was like a shot in the gut for me, because I was really gung-ho on this whole experience. But with me, though, I did take the Prupa and the light treatment. He also, because I'm from Baltimore, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with Johns Hopkins Hospital, University, very research hospital. My dermatologist was from there. They did a whole lot of type of experimental treatments for me. And one of the ones that proved very effective was the suction therapy, where they took this suction machine and they placed it on my forearms, and they sucked up the stem cells in hopes that they take the stem cells and implant them on my face. And then when my skin will heal, I'll go to these light treatment, and that will spread pigment on my face. So my whole, as you see my face now, my whole face had vitiligo on my scalp, back of my neck, and it's come back. But I will say that sticks out the most when I was taking that Pruva treatment. I had to take 3 horse pills. I go 3 times a week, and if I didn't have nothing in my stomach, it was like death taking those pills, because very, very nauseating, very uncomfortable. And I was a teenager at the time, so they always have crackers for me, because sometimes I didn't really able to eat nothing when I had to take those pills, but I had to show up in time for my appointment. So that's basically what was my experience with it. But to be honest with you, with the light treatment, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's UVA light and UVB light. And sometimes I work out, when I go to the gym, I go to the tanning salon, and I know I don't know what type of light that is, but in my mind, I'm thinking it's doing something to be darkening my skin, pigment-wise. But and it proved effective somewhat, because my skin gets darker, and it kind of like contrasts with my light spots. So I don't know if that's bringing me back. I don't know if that's my mind, but I'm just trying to find different things I can do in interim. So
great. Thank you. That's really helpful to hear. Let me take a pause now from talking to our panelists and turn briefly to the phone. Let's go to line 2, Kay from Maryland.
Hello?
Hello, Kay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. So my story is not different from other people. At age 48, I saw white spots on my hands in September 2019, not long ago. Soon after that, I was diagnosed with vitiligo, and it's generalized vitiligo. It's spreading fast all over my body. Now it looks like I almost lost maybe more than 75% of my color. So one thing I want to mention here first is the first dermatologist told me, he just said, oh, you have vitiligo. It's just nothing. It's a cosmetic problem. He just dismissed all my concerns. And that was really painful because it was really affecting me already psychologically. The most difficult issue I have now is the itchiness. It can itch me anytime, mostly on my back and between my legs. It's very irritating. When I take a shower, it feels better, and that's one problem I have besides the psychological impact. I tried everything. I used multiple creams, light therapy. I used to have the light treatment 3 times a week. I tried it about 6 months. Nothing changed. I tried oral steroids. I tried topical steroids. I tried everything. And at the end, now I decided, especially with COVID, I don't want to deal with this. I have other things to do. I try to forget, but the spirit in my head. I'm doing nothing pretty much because I gave up. We don't have anything for this disease, and because it seems like nobody considered to begin with this is a problem. They think it's just cosmetic, but it's more for me. I'm a light brown color person. I feel like I lost my identity. So it's very difficult to be not emotional. Also,
it's okay. We understand these are emotional topics.
Yeah. Sorry. After tried everything, I decided I don't want to have any more problems. I already have enough problems, so let me just deal with this psychologically. I used to start seeing a psychologist. There is no drug for this monster, it just rips my confidence, my color, and my identity. I really wish there would be something, not for me, I'm 50 years old now, for the young kids. We need somebody to understand and consider this as this is a problem. And I read so much, and they said this is like disparities, one of the disparities, because it mostly affects colored people, and it's more visible on colored people, hasn't been considered as a problem. And I want FDA to consider this, how much is, the impact of vitiligo on our mental health. Me from 49 years old, healthy person, being now, I don't want to go outside, I don't want to see my face in the mirror and all that. Thank you for the opportunity, and sorry to be emotional. Thank you.
No, thank you, Kay. And I think that we've heard from a number of people the challenge to kind of that vitiligo adds to their identity, and it certainly seems to be very, very, very impactful. So let me pause for a moment and turn to Shannon to see if we have any comments from people online. Shannon, do we have comments?
Yes, thank you, Robin. We have several comments from webcast participants, mainly talking about their current treatments. One said that they are currently using tacrolimus and excimer therapy. Another one said that they are seeing improvements from the excimer laser therapy. Another participant stated that they're using fluocinolone, Elidel, and UVB light therapy. And after 5 months of sticking to a strict regimen of using the UVB lighting creams, they've noticed about 75% repigmentation. Another participant has used topical ointments and stated that they even tried a liquid medication that's not prescribed in the United States, but it did help for them to gain back some of that pigmentation. But they stated that it's been difficult to continue that medication since it's not available in the U.S. We also have some participants who have used Fuva, and it was effective, but they stated that they needed a break from it because of the side effects and the treatment regimen. And we also have one more who has used NUVB, tacrolimus, vitamins, and herbs, and stated that their face is most responsive to the N-UVB and tacrolimus, and their hands and ankles are virtually impossible to treat with the available methods that they have tried.
Great, thank you so much, Shannon. So we're going to now move on to some polling questions to get feedback from all of you who are joining us online. Polling remains limited to participants who have lived experiences with vitiligo. If we can go to the polling question again, this is just to kind of start the discussion. Polling question, I guess technically it's number 9, but I don't feel like it is. Have you ever used any of the following medical products? And this would include drug therapies or medical devices or interventions to treat your vitiligo. And the first option is topical medications for repigmentation, such as corticosteroids or immunomodulators, which would include Protopic or Elidel. Oral medications, again, such as prednisone or other steroids or other immunomodulators. Light therapy, such as laser phototherapy or PUVA. Surgery, including grafting, melanocyte transplant, or micropigmentation. Topical medications for depigmentation, such as Benequin. Other medical products or interventions not mentioned. Or are you not using any medical products or interventions? And that this not using any medical products or interventions would be never used medical products or interventions. So, all right, looking at the results, and again, there is a bit of a delay between when we ask the question and when it kind of makes it out to the front end for people to respond to the question. But it does look like we're seeing a large use of topical medications as well as light treatments. The first blue block is topical medications. The green block that's showing at about 31% are the light treatments. And the final 9% at the end, kind of on the far right, or 8%, it's changing as I speak, is that not using medical products or interventions, and never used medical products or interventions. So while we're waiting for these polling questions, I wonder if we can start with one of our discussion starters. Beverly, I wonder if you would be willing to speak to us a little bit about what kind of treatments you've tried, and what aspects they addressed and what aspects they didn't address, and maybe how your experiences with them have changed over time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me in this discussion with the FDA. When I was first diagnosed with vitiligo in 2015 at the age of 67, I was immediately given the Protopic. I was also given the photolight treatment, where I went 3 times a week in a full body chamber for photolight. I did that for about 2.5 years. And I really didn't see a lot of progress in either one of those treatments, even though the dermatologist took photos and kind of said, well, you know, I see a little pigmentation here and a little bit more here. But I don't know, my vitiligo just progressed and was so aggressive. I didn't see any progress at all, period. So after about 2.5 years of going 3 times a week for the photolight therapy and using the creams, my medical started not to cover the visits because they said it was cosmetic. So I wasn't able to pay for those 3 times a week treatments on my own. So I kind of discontinued the treatments. But for me personally, I didn't see any effect of the photolight or the creams. So I just stopped using all of them and just let the vitiligo progress as it would normally do. So right now, after about 6 years of vitiligo, I'm just about 85% covered with vitiligo. So I do hope for the children who are on the panel, the young people, that we can find some kind of cure or a more effective treatment so they wouldn't have to live their whole lives with vitiligo. I'm very fortunate to only have had vitiligo for 6 years. I'm 73 years old right now. So, and I have not had any problems with my vitiligo at all, period. I am fortunate to be in a great group with Lee Thomas and Stephen, V-Strong support community, who's very, very helpful in all aspects of vitiligo. So we really need treatments that are more effective than what we have already.
Thank you so much, Beverly. Let me now turn to maybe the phone, line 2K, to maybe speak to thoughts about treatment and what you would look for in an effective treatment. Oh, sorry, line 3, Anna. Hi,
Hello?
Anna.
Hi. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for doing this. It's exciting. I am here today. I've had vitiligo for over 40 years. I've tried millions of treatments from all over the place. And my daughter also now has it. She's had it for about 11 years. And our most successful treatment is with the German treatment, the pseudoketalase in Germany and Jordan, the Dead Sea trip. And we put my daughter's pretty much in remission ever since our first trip there. Hers has never spread. It's never gone away completely, but it's never spread. And mine, I've never been able to get to stop spreading. I consider it a form of art. It's movement. But I've tried, I would like to bring up to this discussion is here in the U.S., I've felt a big resistance with the dermatologists against wanting to treat. I've had a few tell me they don't want to do it. They don't want to treat because the people get frustrated that there's no cure, and they spend money, and then all of a sudden it spreads again, and they just rather not deal with it. So I know from many support groups I belong to that people set an appointment and come back extremely disappointed because the dermatologists don't understand that I'd rather have less vitiligo than more vitiligo, and I want to keep treating. And the access to the narrowband UVB, which in my personal opinion is one of the best treatments out there, needs to be affordable. In Europe, there's no big restriction on it. You can order one, and the simple handheld unit's $150. Here in the U.S., you have to battle the company. That you have to have a prescription from a doctor. You have to pay at least $350 or more because they keep getting a little bit more modern, and every year the price goes up. So I think these are real concerns that, the UVB works very well. The other good thing about the UVB that I've noticed is if you do 15 seconds each side of your vitiligo spots every day, you can go out in the sun and not be so terribly sunburned. Like if I'm not doing the UVB treatments and I start going out in the sun, I immediately get sunburned. But if I take every morning and just do a minute in front of it, I do like 15 seconds each side, and I do it every day, I can go outside and I don't need to be plastering myself 5 times a day in sun lotion. I just put it on if I'm going to be extended stay out there. So I think these things need to be expressed. Thanks.
Yes, no, thank you very much. I really appreciate your thoughts on that. Let me turn to Joe on, I believe, line 5.
Hello.
Hi, Joe. I wonder. Thank you for calling. I wonder if you would share with us kind of some of the thoughts you have about treatments and maybe what an effective treatment would look like for you.
I just want to say thanks for everybody taking the time and looking into this. I've had vitiligo since I've been a baby, and I'm 55 now. My mother, when I was a teen, found treatment as in just a vitamin treatment. And with taking a vitamin regimen, first starting with liquid and then going to just the pill form, I've gotten rid of probably over 65-70% of my vitiligo. And then later in life, I slowed down, did not take the vitamins anymore, and it started to come back. And now I'm back on the vitamin regimen, and I got some vitiligo on my face, and I see it starting to fill in. on my my beard as well as around my eyes and my arms as well again. So I'm back on a vitamin regimen, not under any doctor treatment plan or anything like that, just based off of what my mother has looked up. And that seemed to do wonders for me, not knowing if anybody's looked into a vitamin treatment or doses of how much vitamin and it would help with treatment at all or not.
Okay, thank you. And that actually kind of leads us right into our next polling question that we're going to go to, which is a question about, besides the medical products or interventions mentioned previously, what are you doing currently to manage your vitiligo? And the options that we have, and I will read them to you because they are very small on the screen, are A, temporary cosmetic procedures such as makeup or sunscreen, etc. B, dietary and herbal supplements, and you can choose all that apply. C, diet modifications such as limiting alcohol consumption, a keto diet, a paleo diet, vegan diet, etc. D, over-the-counter products. E, complementary or alternative therapies. F, counseling or psychological treatment. G, other therapies not mentioned. And H, not doing any treatment. Okay, and again, since it's particularly challenging, I think, to see the answers, I will read them to you once we once we get a few more seconds. So it looks like the blue line is temporary cosmetic procedures such as makeup or sunscreen, the first blue. The second, the 19%, is dietary or herbal supplements. Then we have diet modifications. The pink is over-the-counter products. The purple is complementary or alternative therapies. F is counseling. G is other therapies not mentioned, and H, the large green at the far end, is I'm not taking any therapies or treatments. So let me turn briefly now back to our panelists and see if we have anybody who's kind of using some non-drug therapies, particularly maybe the, well, it doesn't really matter. Anyone who's using non-drug therapies, why you decided to use them, and how was your experience? Mary, I don't know if you want to speak to this, or if there's something, is that okay? Great. If you wouldn't mind speaking to that, I believe you're muted. Perfect. Now you're not.
Hello, everybody. This is Mary. I'm in France right now. I'm originally from Turkey. My vitiligo appeared with a tiny dot on my finger when I was 21 years old. Now I'm 39, and almost half of my skin area is now depigmented. At the beginning, I had tried a topical cortisone without much success. 3 years later, I tried a non-conventional therapy from a pharmacist that had trained himself with different non-conventional approaches. So he proposed a therapy combining sunbathing, steam bathing with a lot of creams that we had to apply before going to the sun or under the steam, as well as some herbs and spices that we had to consume orally. And it had really great results. I could repigment all of my face within a month's time. It was really amazing, but the protocol was so much time consuming that it was not compatible with any other occupation during the day. I mean, you had to leave anything else aside and just focus on the treatment. So I just thought that the vitiligo could relapse at any time, and I thought I couldn't spend all of my life treating myself and not doing anything else. I gave up. I gave up after 2 months of therapy. And I decided to stop treating myself, but it was more easily said than done. 2 years ago, so rather recently, I decided to change my diet mainly. I removed all cereals and dairy products from my diet, and combined with exposure to sun, my vitiligo patches started to repigment very quickly, but it's impossible to maintain regular exposure to sun given the winter, the kids, the professional life, and so on. So I still continue the diet, and I see repigmentation at times when I can expose myself to sun for a few days in a row, but I'm not anymore deliberately looking for the opportunity. And what I could say for an ideal therapy for me, I mean, most of the other proposals for therapy were I filtered them, I could say, depending on my mood at that time, how I saw my vitiligo, if I was convinced that it could actually be treated or not. And now I'm convinced that a treatment for vitiligo cannot be convincing if it is simply targeting the skin, unless the manifestation of vitiligo itself is very localized and specific. For my case, or for cases of expanded vitiligo like mine, it's clear to me that vitiligo is only the symptom of other deregulations, either physiological or psychological, if not both. So in an ideal treatment, I would certainly look for a comprehensive approach, looking for the root causes and addressing them, and combining multiple strategies that do not necessarily fit in one drug if needed. Treatment proposals from the Eastern medicines, from Ayurvedic or traditional Chinese medicine, are, for instance, very interesting, as though they do not propose one single drug, but I do not have the expertise myself to judge on their merits as such.
Thank you.
If I could just add one thing, and I think other than any treatment approach to vitiligo itself, it's very important to systematically propose also psychological help, because, I mean, everybody talked about it. This could be one of the reasons of the onset of the vitiligo, but even if it's not the reason, it has certainly effects on our psychology. So in any case, I think psychological help is essential for patients suffering from vitiligo. Thank you.
Thank you. Beverly, did you want to add something briefly before we go to somebody on the call, on the phone?
Were you speaking to me?
Yeah, sorry, I saw you had your camera on, so I wondered if you wanted to add something briefly.
No,
Okay.
not
Okay.
right now. Okay.
Great. All right, thank you. So let me then turn to Savannah on line 6.
Hello.
Hi, Savannah.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Savannah, and I want to start by thanking you all for sharing your experiences and to the FDA for hosting this meeting. I was diagnosed with segmental vitiligo when I was around 16, following the appearance of a halo nevus on my back. I'm now 22, and no one else in my family has or had vitiligo. It was very stagnant for a while, only spreading on the right side of my back and chest, but it has changed a lot over time. And one of the biggest things I've noticed is the correlation between stress in my life and the spread of vitiligo. But in terms of treatments, I've tried topical treatments such as Protopic, Elidel, and others, which are supposed to use for quite a while. But a lot of these creams stain absolutely everything, which makes it challenging to keep up with treatment. Sheets, pillows, clothes, towels, etc. And I know many people cannot afford to constantly replace these items, so it's either treatment or stained belongings. So my hope is that drug developers will keep this in mind. And in terms of accessibility, most topical treatments that I've tried are not covered by medical insurance for the purpose of treating vitiligo. So hopefully conversations such as these will allow us to make progress on this so that vitiligans of all socioeconomic statuses can obtain treatment. I believe it's very important to have these conversations so that awareness can be brought to vitiligo as something that is more than an aesthetic inconvenience, but rather a condition that truly does affect people's everyday lives all over the world, like we've heard today. Whether that manifests itself physically, psychologically, socially, and more. So I greatly appreciate all of you for hosting this meeting today. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Let us move now to one more polling question. which is about the medical products or interventions. What are the most burdensome impacts of the treatment? And so the question is, for the medical products or interventions you use, what do you consider to be the most burdensome impacts? And you can choose up to 3 answers. The first one is how the medication is administered, such as topical cream or an injection. Change in the pigmentation of the skin, such as color or pattern. The treatment only provides minimal benefit. The treatment is effective only for a short term. Bothersome side effects of the treatment. Concerns about serious risks of the treatment. Uncertainty about the long-term effects of the treatment. Difficulty in accessing treatment, such as insurance or physician referral, and other negative impacts not mentioned. And I think that we've kind of already touched on this quite a bit with our panelists and the people on the phone. So, but I think it's helpful just to kind of continue the discussion to really understand the impacts that that a broader portion of people participating in the meeting are experiencing. So it looks like, pretty much all of these impacts are burdensome and impactful to people. So I think that this really speaks to what we've heard already. So thank you for that. I think I'd like to, as with the polling results are coming in, I would like to really kind of talk to you or ask you a little bit more about efficacy and safety. So efficacy and safety are important for any treatment. So when you think about a treatment for vitiligo, does it matter to you whether the product might improve your most bothersome symptom, or whether it would have some bothersome side effects? I guess what we're kind of asking is, would you consider improvement in what? Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought midway through there. But as far as when you're considering the benefits of a treatment and the risks of a treatment, how do you make a decision about what you would consider accepting as far as risks when you're thinking about a treatment? And so let me see if I realize that some of the people that we have on the line may have called in for different purposes, but for those of you waiting on the line, I'm going to turn to you in a moment to see if you have any thoughts on that. Jay, it seems like maybe you might have a thought on that, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing that thought with us.
Yeah, sure. It's just mainly just with how resourceful the treatment is and how often, where you can purchase that, and also costs with it as well. I was very fortunate that a lot of my treatments was given to me for research purposes, because that was way back in the early 2000s. I know that everybody's not as fortunate to receive that right now. So that's the main thing. And also just with trying to, a lot of the side effects with it can be very burdensome. And just having a voice with talking to dermatologists, that's an advocate for you. You need a lot of advocacy for these type of treatments for vitiligo, just to keep somebody who's trying to start a new treatment, to sustain it, so to speak, and have support with it. That's all.
Thanks, Jay. Stephen, did you want to say something?
System is a major factor.
Stephen, I'm having a little trouble with your audio. I don't know if others are as well. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking about something. Stress is a key factor for vitiligo in its spread. When I was taking treatment, the stress of taking the treatment, the drive, the waiting in line and coming back, the 3 days a week, the 6 months of treatment, and then any future treatments with other light treatments, I think that caused my vitiligo to regress, even though I was making progress, because I was stressing during the treatment process.
That is an interesting thought. I think that I think Mary touched on that kind of earlier as well. So no, thank you. So now let me turn to Neda on line 8 to see if to hear from some of our phone line callers. Neda?
Neda, hi.
Neda, sorry.
No, it's totally fine. So I'm 29, about to be 30, and so in 2 months I would have had vitiligo for 20 years, which is a scary number, my God. But I got it when I was 10. It was like a little spot on my chin, and the thing is, we went to my primary care doctor, which was the worst idea because then it spread to my chin and then my neck, and that's all where I have it. And I started with UVB light, and like everybody was sharing, which I really appreciate, I would go 3 times a week after school, and it was, my childhood was very intense because I would go after school and then come back to school or go do theater. So it was very, very time consuming. And then I switched to UVA, and we thought we could, snap it with UVB first because it was narrowband, more precise, and then UVA, we knew the risks, did it anyway, and then after a while, then we did eczema. So then I would go to Stanford 3 times a week, and then when I went to college, that's where it stopped because I went to Orange County, and UC Irvine had it, but then when I called the medical board, I remember whoever was on the line said, oh, it's a cosmetic thing. And that really pissed me off because then I said, okay, whoever's on that line doesn't know, isn't educated about it. And I thought for myself and I couldn't get anywhere. So then I haven't had treatment, but then my dad, he bought me that portable kit from Javelin. And I feel so bad because I haven't used it as well, and I feel like it was a waste of money because I still have it with me, but the way it's designed, I can't cover it with a sheet. And even with the light treatment, I would do the goggles, the cream on the face, the towels, everything going in. And so I still have that, and I'm curious if anyone else has Javelin. Forgot how to use it. But then right now I do Protopic, and I also bought this vegetarian tablet called Regular, so it supports reappearance of color and gray hair and depigmented skin. So I thought, can't hurt. Gave that to my holistic nutritionist to test it on me, the whole Eastern medicine thing, and he said it was fine. And what's curious is I went to my dermatologist last year, a new one, because I live in LA now. And what was interesting was that I think I wanted to tell everyone that whoever's your dermatologist, make sure they're empathetic and compassionate and care about vitiligo, because the way she spoke to me, it was like she didn't care. And we, all the, thoughts about the psychological, the emotional, all of that, I mean, to have your doctor not really care and say, well, chances are, I always ask, like, are there any updates? Is there, all that? And she said, well, you've had it for almost 20 years. Like, it's pretty old now. And hearing everybody say how long they've had it, I'm like, that can't be an answer. Like, I still feel like the body can, do something, heal itself. So that was very disheartening to hear, and I'm not going to her again. And I'm also an actor and singer, and I, when I go on set, and this is for the cosmetic portion, is that I feel like there should be a makeup line for makeup artists who work in TV and film. This could be a conversation down the road one day, where there's a makeup line that's the ingredients are specifically for entertainment people with vitiligo, because we've worked hard to, maintain our vitiligo health, quote unquote, and so I don't want to, God forbid, use makeup products that I don't know what the ingredients are made of.
Great. No, thank you so much, Neda. We really appreciate your thoughts. Unfortunately, we're going to need to move on now to Kelly on line 7. Kelly? Kelly?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry for the jump. Hi. Yes. I'm so sorry. I was listening. What was the question I'm being asked to respond to?
So I think that it would be really helpful for us to understand kind of from a benefit risk standpoint, what would an effective treatment look like to you, and what kind of side effects would you be willing to tolerate for an effective treatment?
Okay. Okay, I can help you.
If you have something else that you'd like to speak to, please feel free, but just within a kind of a minute or two.
Okay, no, I can address what you asked, and I think put my 2 cents in at the same time. I've had vitiligo for 23 years, since I was 12. I'm currently 34. I'm an African American woman with vitiligo, and so my experience with it has been prepubescent all the way until womanhood, and I feel that the treatment that is most needed right now is more research into the use of the cream or the cream Benequin, the treatment of monobenzone for people of color at earlier intersections of having vitiligo. Because what I find is that most dermatologists do not want to give people of color Benequin before they're 50% covered with vitiligo. But what happens, in order for us to get to that point, because it's an autoimmune condition, everyone depigments at their own rate, and they're not taking into consideration the socio-psychological effects of walking around with 2 pigments. And as a person of color that's had this for over 20 years now, I've had the hardest time maintaining work because of my social experiences in the workplace. And it's been emotionally debilitating because I just want to take care of myself. But because of the way that current treatments are with vitiligo, they're focusing more on trying to help people repigment successfully instead of depigment successfully. And I think we need to rework that idea because we know that monobenzone works. And I feel like helping people adjust to the changes in their appearance is going to happen either way. When Michael Jackson died, he still had Benequin on his bedside. So there's certain emotional understandings that I feel we can help vitiligo people reach through therapy and through psychotherapy and through training psychotherapists to deal with vitiligo patients and other patients with autoimmune conditions for that matter. Because where I'm at personally is I finally have monobenzone, but I'm 34 and I'm underemployed because of everything that I've been through with vitiligo. And it's like if they would have just given me the cream when I asked for it when I was 21 and in undergrad and seeing dermatologists at Howard University who specialize in vitiligo, but no, they wanted to do all these treatments on me to try to help me repigment, and that wasn't what I was interested in as a patient. So I want more research done for people of color for monobenzone treatments and for psychological therapy. Not saying that I understand that vitiligo affects everyone that has it, and I'm not putting down any other racial ethnicity groups with vitiligo. But what I'm expressing is that because it's harder to cover in darker pigmented people, it just becomes this issue of marginalization and social stratification. Therefore, you're going to have more psychological problems. And monobenzone works. It takes away the color.
Right.
It's a painful process to lose your color with vitiligo anyway. I've had a dermatologist tell me he didn't want to give me monobenzone because he wasn't sure if I could handle being white. And so there's a huge problem in the medical community with racial biases in treatment of vitiligo patients. And that's a whole nother, that was my 2 cents. But research on monobenzone, how it affects the immune system, but also the autonomic nervous system would be great. Because the truth is we can manage wearing sunblock for the rest of our lives, but going through multi-pigmented into all the different areas of your life, it's just emotionally exhausting. And I know that's across the board with all patients that suffer with vitiligo.
understand that. And the subconsciousness, you think someone can see a spot that they can't even see. Like, it's just
right.
yeah. So
right.
more
No,
research.
thank you, and I think that is an important point, and I think we have heard a number of times today that there is identity kind of tied to the pigmentation and the depigmentation, and it is very impactful to people. So I think you raised some very good points. Thank you for that. Let me turn now to our FDA panelists, particularly Dr. Marcus, to see if you had any questions or clarifying questions that you had for our panelists or our callers, please.
Sure. Thank you, Robin. Focusing once again on repigmentation, and I just want to say that I completely respect the caller's perspective that depigmentation is sometimes the preferred goal for patients. But focusing on repigmentation, I'd like to ask people today, in the context of how well a product works, do you all have ideas about what a clinically, in FDA speak, we like to talk about clinically meaningful improvements. And in terms of addressing diseases and providing effective treatments, progress is often made in small, stepwise fashion, where initially products provide modest efficacy. Scientists and drug companies build on what has been learned from the first products that are developed, and subsequently, oftentimes, although not always, new products will have more efficacy. In that context, in this area where there is still a significant unmet medical need, if as a patient you were going to take a treatment, is there some minimum level of improvement or repigmentation that would be meaningful to you? So would any level of repigmentation for those who have lost the majority of their pigment, would that be meaningful to you? Would it be meaningful if you regained half of your pigment? If that's the best that you could do, would you be satisfied with that as being better than no treatment? I'd just like to hear about that level of improvement that patients would accept from any treatment. Thank you.
Okay, let me start by turning to Beverly, and then we'll go to Mary.
Yes, to answer that question, I think Lee and both Stephen spoke to the area, if we had to choose an area, and that would be our face. I know when I was diagnosed, I said, well, just please don't let it come to my face. So, and it took about 2.5 years before it got to my face. So if there were some treatment that could bring the pigment back in our face areas would be very helpful, because that's where people see you and they can hear you, what you're saying, if they can see a normal face, when you're trying to advocate or talk about something important, educate people on vitiligo, because that's what we do now. We're all advocates. So that would be an area that I think that we would all be happy if we can get the pigmentation back into our face.
Thanks, Beverly. And let me just ask a quick follow-up question. So when Dr. Marcus was talking about maybe like 50% pigmentation back, would that be, or when you think about getting the pigmentation back and you speak about what would be success, would it be kind of like half the pigmentation back as far, or would it be, or are you thinking kind of complete? I mean, obviously complete would be wonderful, but would 50% be something?
To me or someone else? To me?
You, just real quick at the end of your comments.
I think 50% would not, for the facial area, if we can get more than the 50%, you can do the other with makeup, but I've decided not to wear makeup at all, period. But in the facial area, if it can be where makeup can do the other part of it, and it wouldn't look so much like you're wearing makeup, which many people do. I don't anymore at all, period. But I think more than 50% area in the face would be helpful.
Great, thank you. Now let me turn to Mary, and then Stephen, and then Vimla and Priyanka, and then we'll go back to the phones.
Yes, to me also the face is very important. I think we will all agree about this. And also, I mean, face and the continuity, somewhat the neck and the neckline, I mean, because, I mean, the makeup, when we end the makeup somewhere, there is a great gap of color between the makeup and the not makeup part. But I think the efficacy of the treatment is not only about how much recovery of pigment it allows, but it's also about how long this recovery will last, because most of the treatments do bring improvement. I mean, not every treatment can work with everybody, but there are some treatments that will work with some people. But even in these cases, when we stop the treatment, it will all come back somehow, slower or quicker. So it's also very important. I mean, the efficacy question for me is also the lasting effect of the treatment, if possible.
That's helpful too. Thank you. Stephen.
I'm going to underscore what she said at the end, because I was thinking the same thing too. I want a qualifier in there, because every time I had improvements and stopped taking treatments, I lost what I gained. I don't need to go through an emotional roller coaster ride. So I want 100% guarantee, okay? I know that's asking for a lot. From my experience, I just don't want to lose what I've gained, because I've gone through this process so many times. And so you got to rephrase the question as a qualifier. If we can guarantee a high percentage of efficacy and it's going to stay that way, then we'll have that conversation.
Very good. Thank you. And now let me turn to Vimla and Priyanka.
Thank you, Robin, for that question. I just wanted to emphasize that we definitely want a high percentage. So typically in the 80 to 100%, mainly because there's also parallel progression of the vitiligo. So your baseline assessment is constantly changing, which is why you want a very high degree of repigmentation and permanent repigmentation at very high numbers, far greater than 50%, just because the spread and the rate of spread is much higher than the rate of repigmentation. So that is why you want to hit it even before it spreads. So I would say pretty high numbers, like 80 to 100%. Priyanka, do you want to add anything?
In addition to what some other panelists mentioned earlier, I think location is really important. So I'd much rather prefer that results rise on my face as opposed to other parts of my body, just because those are the most visual areas and those are the areas that people tend to judge. That's all.
Great. Thank you very much. Now let me turn to Betty on line 8.
Good afternoon. I just kind of wanted to answer what the question the doctor was proposing, as far as how much percent, what would you consider success? I've had vitiligo for 45 years, and I have it like over 75% of my body. Mostly my face is impacted. I would say in order to gauge that, you would probably need to do a demographic and ask people of different groups, how much do they have over their entire body, and then kind of give them a timeline as to, the treatment. In 6 months, if you could get 25% back, would that be successful to you? Or, in 12 months, if you could get 50% back, would that be something you would be interested in doing? Because not everyone is interested in getting the repigmentation treatment. So that will be something that will be helpful to people with vitiligo. So I would say to do something in that regard to kind of assess what the needs are.
Great. Thank you, Betty. Really appreciate that. Let me turn now briefly to Shannon to see if we have any comments from people online regarding this question.
Thanks, Robin. We've received several comments online about clinically meaningful treatment benefits. and they're all kind of differing based on the individual's experience, but one individual said that they would love to regain even half of their pigment as long as the effects in the process were not too arduous. And on the other hand, some had expressed that they are looking for all or nothing in a treatment, and that consistency is very important in terms of that unknown factor of possibly losing pigmentation in the future. Another commenter stated that they're now 43 years into their journey with vitiligo, and they are not interested in small improvement treatment, but 50% or higher would be very beneficial, especially if the treatment was easy. If it was a cream that they have to use 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, then the 50% would not be worth it to them. Another individual expressed that they have universal vitiligo and 100% natural skin depigmentation, so they would only consider a treatment that repigments at least 80% of their skin, and they would also consider a higher risk treatment if it was effective at putting their vitiligo into remission for a longer period of time. They would also love to see a treatment for the repigmentation of their hair. And a few other commenters also mentioned that their face is probably their first priority in terms of treatment and seeking that repigmentation.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. Let's move on now to actually, we have a hypothetical scenario that kind of touches on this, and will get kind of give us a good idea of what people throughout our webcast are thinking about this. So if we can move on to hypothetical one, which is a new skin cream. Let me see if, okay, so I am going to read the hypothetical scenario to you. So imagine that a new topical cream, not a steroid, indicated to treat vitiligo has recently been approved by the FDA. Your doctor believes that you or your loved one may be a good candidate for this medication. The topical cream needs to be applied once a day. Research in animals and people show that this treatment may improve pigmentation by up to 50%. Some common side effects for this therapy may include redness and irritation at the application site, mild acne, and burning. Rarer but more serious side effects may include fever, pain during swallowing, insomnia, nausea, and increased heart rate. What first thoughts come to your mind as you hear this scenario? What questions would you ask your doctor about this treatment? And so our question to you first is, given the risks and benefits, would you be interested in taking this medication? And the options are yes, no, or maybe. Okay, and it looks like we're pretty split about that, with some people say, with 43% of people saying yes, about 25 to 30% saying no, and 30 saying maybe. So this kind of is helpful for us to hear. It would also be helpful for us to know kind of what degree of risks are you willing to accept for an effective treatment. Risks such as immunosuppression or potential other challenges as we look at that. So while we're waiting for these comments to, or waiting for the results to kind of stabilize, let me turn to just a few more people that we have on the phone, and let me see. I'm sorry, I've lost my list of people on the phone. Do we still have Masooma on line 10?
Yes, I am still online. Can you hear me?
Great. Thank you so much for your patience and for holding. So I wonder if you would be willing to speak a little bit to the thoughts about treatment and effective treatments, and what would that look like, and side effects you'd be willing to kind of deal with. But if you had something else you'd like to speak to, we'd be happy to hear that in the next minute or two.
Yes, thank you so much again for the opportunity to voice our opinions, both to the FDA and to the organizers of this this meeting and all of the patients with vitiligo that have already shared their stories. I wanted to touch on a few different points. In terms of the clinically meaningful outcomes and looking at optional therapies for future, I think going back to the 50% option of repigmentation, again, I think this can vary quite a bit. Again, I would agree with the rest of the speakers that I've already spoken before. The face is very important. So I think 50% is not acceptable to me. I really would like that area to be higher. And of course, the other issue is that repigmentation pattern. For somebody who's lost a lot of, pigment already, regaining 50% might make them actually look perhaps, worse in terms of their own opinion versus being more uniform in color. So I think that's a consideration. The other thing is the duration of pigment, gained and how long the effect will last as well should be considered because, again, we're kind of tethering back and forth between having repigmentation and then losing it again. And I think bringing, the sort of the cause of vitiligo and perhaps autoimmunity in general becomes very important in this regard because, the issue is that we're always playing catch up with the condition. So I think really, putting more research and understanding into the causes of the disease, I think can help in that regard because we're not just repigmenting, we're also slowing the progression or perhaps even halting additional flares. The other thing I want to mention also is that, considering some of the other options that are already in development that are being looked at for vitiligo, they carry significant side effects such as, immunosuppression that you've already mentioned. So if I have a risk of a very severe infection down the road or perhaps even cancer, that really makes me rethink, does my immune system need to be suppressed via an oral medication versus a topical? So I would be more open to a topical medication if that is very effective. But again, if the oral treatment had a very favorable benefit-risk, profile, I would definitely consider that as well. But I think, again, some of these need to be looked at more long-term in terms of the side effects as well, because we don't want to just be addressing that now and having, some major other issues down the road. One other thing I want to implore the FDA to do also is in terms of looking at this from a holistic perspective. Many of us have already mentioned that the vitiligo carries, a vast and varied negative consequences for many of us, including physical, psychological, emotional, etc. So I think, again, this may be the first step, but really bringing together some of the other regulatory agencies or, government agencies, including, academicians, researchers, etc., and pharmaceutical companies to look at this and provide more answers in what really may be effective in stopping the progression of the disease, not just looking at treatment options once it's already developed. And again, we're playing catch up. So thank you again for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you so much. That was really a very, very insightful comments. I appreciate those. Let me turn to Denise on line 5.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Denise from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm the president of Fearfully and Wonderfully Made IDC, vitiligo community, but I was diagnosed 15 or 16 years ago. In fact, I was 50 when I first had my first spot. Went to 4 different doctors and had 4 different skin biopsies, and finally, got the right diagnosis. I was misdiagnosed first. But I just want to say real fast that I agree with everything about especially the last lady in front of me, that what she just said, she's spot on. But I wanted to bring up a couple of things that in my group that I've had people share with me that haven't been shared yet. And that is that one, a person who had vitiligo in my group, her vitiligo and stopping her makeup was the straw that broke the camel back. And it stopped her from, she got a divorce. And then another person in my vitiligo group, she needs to write a book, but she, because of her, I now carry a doctor's statement in my car because of the climate of, political climate today with the policing and things like that. I don't want to be stopped and somebody look at my license and look at my picture on my license, which does not look like my face anymore, and get arrested because they think I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not. So those are all things that are just really, so important and why, like Perry said, we really need you guys to really pay attention. You know, and I'm so thankful for this avenue and the fact that you're doing this right now. So thank you so much for letting me get on and let me share this, okay? And I'm going to still be boots on the ground in Indiana spreading awareness about vitiligo.
Great. Thanks so much, Denise. Really appreciate your call. So it looks like we're coming up on the end of the meeting. Let me turn back to our panelists. I don't know if we have anybody who wants to share any final thoughts. Lee Thomas, I know you had raised your hand a bit earlier and I hadn't been able to get to you. Did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share with us before we kind of wrap up the meeting?
I'm trying to unmute myself.
You're unmuted. Your video is not on, which is fine. We can still hear you.
Okay. All right. Now there it is. You guys allowed me to start my video. Thank you. The only thing I want to say is I think it was Neda from California, or Veta from California. She asked about makeup, and I have to put makeup on every day. So I found a couple of products that actually work. And one of them is Cover Effects. It was made for rosacea, to cover rosacea, but it has the pigment in the makeup, actually works pretty good. The last thing I'll say is I really appreciate this. I really do. I've traveled around, and this is the first time I'm sitting on a panel with people from the FDA, or I'm part of a panel with people from the FDA. So I'm very encouraged by this day, and it's been emotional and it's been insightful. And I just want to say, thank you, Robin, and thank you to the people from the FDA for letting me be a part of it. And I'm anxious to see what happens next.
Thanks so much. Let me go to Mary and then Jay for final comments before we turn it over to Dr. Marcus for closing remarks. Mary?
You can hear me better now. Thank you for this meeting. It was very enlightening to hear the other vitiligo patients to hear their experiences. I really would like to underline the importance, for me at least, to work on the root causes of vitiligo, because now we are all focusing on symptomatic treatments because that's what we are interested in. I mean, we try to look better, we try to feel more self-confident about the way we look. Of course, this is understandable, but I think we do have to look at the root causes and try to find the treatments that are going to heal the root causes, because the skin it's just manifesting some things that's probably going wrong somewhere else. So I really would like to see more research on the root causes of vitiligo. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jay?
Yes. Lastly, just to put on there, I know something that wasn't discussed, and I know that works for me, is a last-ditch type of treatment for all of us that's watching this, is acceptance. Once we accept who we are and love who we are, that gives us a driving force to keep going on. And this is the support that we have with this type of FDA panel and all this support groups through Facebook that wasn't around when I first came on eons ago, has helped me a whole lot. So whether we get a treatment or a cure or not, just knowing that I'm not in this battle by myself, gives me the fight to at least be grateful I'm waking up and keep going on. I can share my experiences and strength and hope and my depression and all that stuff with people in my support group, and know that I'm not talking by myself. So thank you all again. Much love.
Thanks, Jay. I can't think of a better way to kind of end the panel session. So thank you all for an amazing meeting. Your sharing today has really provided us with valuable insights. And again, if we weren't able to get to your comments today, that doesn't mean they're not valuable. We do really want to hear them. So please consider sharing them to the Federal Register, and we will also include them in the Voice of the Patient report. In addition, as a reminder, we will be launching the crowdsourcing website later on this week, hopefully.